Welcome to Beatsource Tech. My name is Mojaxx, and in something of a departure for this series, in this episode I'm talking about a product that you should categorically not use for DJing. I've reviewed a lot of DJ cartridges over the years, and I'm still in the midst of reviewing some right now. I apologise to those of you still waiting for some of those reviews, and I appreciate your frustration, but ultimately it's a fairly niche category, and most of the time more mainstream products have to come first in the queue. In the meantime though, there's always been something which has intrigued me. Aside from the ceramic rubbish on the all-in-one hi-fi systems I had as a kid, I've only ever used DJ cartridges to play records, and there's no doubt that DJ carts can sound very good, but in designing them, manufacturers have to take a host of considerations into account. Because let's be honest, DJs do things with vinyl which the format was not designed to do. We back cue, we scratch, we play in bass heavy environments, and so DJ carts and styli must be designed with all of that in mind. A DJ stylus tip is also usually, but not always, spherical, which means it isn't too fussy about alignment. It also copes better with abuse than an elliptical stylus, which is more tapered and goes deeper into the groove. Scratching and cueing with an elliptical can cause more wear to both the record and the stylus itself, and you should never use an elliptical stylus with a completely straight tone arm like those found on Vestax turntables. You'll also find that the sound profile of DJ carts is often tuned in quite specific ways. Take the M44.7s or Ortofon Scratch for example. They have a very bass and mid-forward sound, perfect for hip-hop and scratching, and they sound great in a club, but they offer nowhere near the kind of flat sound you might be looking for when chilling out with some classic rock on a Sunday afternoon. Hi-fi cartridges, however, have none of those concerns. All they need to do is stay in the groove in the correct direction and sound good, and they'll usually have an elliptical stylus or a variation of that shape, which means the sound should be better overall. So as part of my journey whilst reviewing all these DJ carts, I decided to get hold of some hi-fi specific cartridges from Ortofon to see just what the differences are, and ask, if you're a vinyl lover, is it worth actually having one in your setup for listening purposes, or for recording vinyl to digital? After all, the turntables that most of us DJs use, 1200s and the various takes on the Super OEM, are actually capable of producing very good sound, so could we be getting more out of them? Ortofon offer a host of different hi-fi carts, from basic models to super high-end moving coil types which can cost thousands. Those require special preamps and would not be immediately practical when added to a typical DJ setup, so that's an entirely different rabbit hole I don't want to go down. What I'd call the company's most mainstream offerings are the moving magnet 2M range. These kick off with the affordable 2M Red and go right up to the 2M Black LVB, a cartridge which costs over $1,000. The higher end models have a fine line or Shibata stylus, which comes to an even sharper tip than a regular elliptical to read even more detail from the grooves, but those seemed a bit excessive for my purposes. What's really interesting is that the 2M styli are interchangeable up to a point. The 2M Red stylus and the next one up in the line, the Blue, use the same cartridge body, which makes it easy for someone to upgrade from a Red to a Blue. And that's kind of what I did. I got a 2M Red cart and stylus, and a separate Blue stylus to try with that cart. The 2M Red has a street price of around $100 in the US for the cart and stylus. This is reasonably affordable as hi-fi carts go, although you will need a head shell if you don't have one already. It has an elliptical stylus with a bonded design, where a diamond tip is bonded to a metal shank. That's the tech used on most DJ carts. There are a number of areas like internal impedance, load resistance, etc. where the 2M differs slightly from a DJ cart, but one spec which makes it quite a good match for a DJ mixer is the output voltage. Yes, 5.5 millivolts is nowhere near close to something like a 44.7 or an Ortofon Scratch, but it's higher than most hi-fi carts, and so the preamps in your mixer or controller should be able to handle it well without maxing out the gain. In terms of performance, it's really all about the suspension. The 2M Red is designed to track at just 1.8 grams, around half or less the tracking force of most DJ carts. The upshot of that is that whilst it tracks the grooves of the record well enough, if you were to start back cueing or even worse, scratching, it's going to begin losing grip very quickly indeed. And the cantilever is just inherently more fragile than the ones found on DJ carts. Use the 2M Red for DJing, even with a very light touch, and you will kill it very quickly. Having spent a number of hours listening to the 2M Red after a break-in period, I have to admit that whilst it was a solid enough performer, it didn't really offer a huge improvement over many of the DJ carts I've been testing of late. The sound is clean and detailed and offers plenty of clarity in the mid-range, and it's pretty flat, so it might make a nice alternative to a DJ cart which colours the sound heavily, but it didn't blow me away in terms of dynamics. It's not an especially lively listen. As an entry-level cart for an average home listener, the 2M Red is a good purchase, especially with that built-in upgrade path. But whether it's worth buying as a DJ is really quite dependent on what carts you have already. For example, if you use any of the Concord Mark II range of cartridges for DJing, then you can pick up a Mark II Club stylus, which is also elliptical, for around $75, and you'll get results which are just as good as the Red to my ears. Where things change is with the 2M Blue, which has a street price for the cart and stylus together of around $240. As I've already said, the cart is the same, but the difference is in the stylus itself. The Blue is still elliptical, but it has a nude stylus, where the whole stylus is one piece of diamond as opposed to just the tip. We've seen this tech used in some recent DJ cart offerings, the latest from Gico and Ortofon's own Concord Elite, but it's still a rarity. If you didn't watch my reviews of those, the idea is that a nude stylus has lower mass and therefore offers better transient response, which is reflected in the experience I've had with nude styli across the board up to now. That more agile nature is absolutely reflected in the sound of the 2M Blue. Mid-range really comes alive compared to the Red, with instruments being separated in a more distinct way, and the soundstage is noticeably more three-dimensional too. The bass has more definition and the highs are plentiful, but there's no obvious coloration of the sound. It's very transparent and absolutely highlights the differences between different phono preamps. The best thing about the Blue is its versatility. It's equally at home reproducing the complex snares and deep bass of electronica as it is more subtle acoustic works, and I think that nude stylus is really the key to that. It did get me wondering about trying the more expensive fine line stylus options further up in the range, but ultimately I think that without upgrading the rest of my signal chain, I'd be getting into diminishing returns there. All the same caveats apply as they did with the Red. It tracks at 1.8 grams and will absolutely not be sturdy enough to handle DJ maneuvers. But for listening and indeed ripping vinyl to digital formats, it's a solid recommend from me. Putting it into price context for those uses, does it sound better than the Concord Mark II Club, which costs $200? I would say it does, especially in the higher frequencies. In terms of pure sound, it's basically up there with the Concord Elite that I reviewed a while back, which also has a nude stylus, but that sells for over $400. Of course, that one's going to work for DJing as well, so again, it just comes down to what your needs are and what you own already. For me, if you own regular Concords or say the Gico 44.7s for DJing, then a 2M Blue will be an ideal companion for listening and recording. It's absolutely going to be the benchmark to which I compare other cartridges moving forward from this point, and when I need to rip those vinyl-only releases to my computer. And if you also spend a lot of time doing that, or just sitting down and enjoying your vinyl outside of the DJ booth, then perhaps it will also be worth the investment for you. So there you go, my thoughts on the 2M Red and Blue cartridges from Ortofon. From my point of view, this has been absolutely a successful exercise because now I have what I was looking for in that 2M Blue. I have a benchmark, a yardstick that I can use to compare against all the DJ cartridges that I'm still working on reviews for, and there's even more about to arrive. So that's really useful for me. And also, it gives me a real good baseline when I'm listening to different audio gear, mixers, controllers, etc., comparing different phono preamps. So for me, having a really detailed, transparent stylus like that, which is only ever going to be used for testing, is a wonderful thing. But I'm really curious, and I'd love to hear from you in the comments. Do you actually just sit down and listen to vinyl? I know from asking before that there are lots of you out there who do perform DJ sets with vinyl, whether that's 12-inch vinyl or 45s or a mix of both. But do you buy records, sit down, focus your attention and play them on vinyl and enjoy them? Because obviously that's a very different way of listening to and consuming music to just listening to a digital file on your phone, in your car, whatever. That's a totally different thing. So I'm fascinated to know just how many of you out there have got that as part of your life, you know, that vinyl listening experience. Do you just buy records just to listen to and not to DJ with at all? Are you a fully digital DJ, but you also go out and buy LPs and sit down and enjoy them at home? So Let me know in the comments. I'm not going to, start doing loads of hi-fi content. This is a DJ focused channel, of course, but I do think it would be quite instructive and informative for me to know if that kind of thing is a part of your life. Thank you for watching this episode of Beatsource Tech. I do hope you've enjoyed it or found it useful. If you have, please give the video a thumbs up and make sure you subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any future videos. I'll see you next time.